right, I got 1,300. And in the Army, we train to standards, not time. But since my time is 1 hour, I will not go beyond that. Good morning. My name is Jason Tolbert. I have been using my civilian alias this whole week, but I do have an identity in the United States Army as Lieutenant Colonel Tolbert at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I am very appreciative of the opportunity to come to this camp. I've heard a lot about it in the past. I've had representatives from South Carolina send personnel. We have 2 guys from South Carolina here that I see that this experience is benefiting them. And I wanted to see for myself how it functions so I can start to educate and expand the culture of wrestling further in South Carolina. And I've seen a lot that will help me do that. So just like a match, I have some anxiety, some nerves, but they're excitement nerves. I'm confident that I have prepared myself. I've gone over my information. I know my information. And I'm confident that the personnel that I'm going to reach out to help me with the brief they provided, they'll work with me till we get to the bottom of today's brief, and that's just to improve your wrestling. We're not here to say the military phrase we use, shark shoot or blue falcon, anyone's wrestling. This is a critique. This is to show where we're doing good things and where we're doing bad things. And we just take a real hard look at the truth that's on video. A lot of what I've done is be a nomad with my wrestling experience across the country. Wherever I'm stationed, I find a gym, a club, and I volunteer. From 2014 to 17, I volunteered in Southern California with 5 to 18-year-olds, teaching wrestling. Volunteer, not asking for nothing. I moved to Charlotte. 2 high school programs, RGK, Providence, Dark Horse Wrestling Club, from 17 to 21. I go to Afghanistan, I'm part of the drawdown. I'm in Qatar, COVID happens. I'm in DC for 3 years. Wrestling Wrestling Club, Marymount University as a RTC. I'm very well known in that area. I started officiating there, and I'm officiating through the state of Virginia. Then I started doing 14U, Fargo, and I overlap officiating with my coaching experience. And so I'm pulling a lot of that into today's brief, but one of the biggest things I do is I don't have a club. I don't have a home. And people ask me, I want private lessons from you. And so I started to formulate, well, what does that mean? How do I go about that? And when I get in the room and I take some shots or let's wrestle, I was like, well, give me some video. And the first thing I get is from the kid or their parent is the matches they want. I'm like, what? I have nothing to correct if you did things necessary to get a victory. But what is your goal? And everyone's, I want to be a state champ. I want to go to college. I want to wrestle in NCAAs. Or I want to train for the Olympics. I was like, okay, well, what prevented you from making regionals? What prevented you from placing in state or qualifying for state? We have to look at the matches you lost to see what symptoms or systemic things that are occurring to prevent you from winning those matches. And we've talked about a lot of it today. Every coach has brought a presentation that had to do with something that was key to your wrestling. Were you cutting weight correctly? Are you sleeping and recovering correctly? Are you drilling correctly? Do you have enough technical understanding of your wrestling, the rules? All right? Is your coach organized and have a plan enough to tap into your wrestling abilities? All right, so I'm kind of going a little bit into my brief about how it's going to be, but I want you to get the big picture, and then we're going to pare down. All right, so here's the agenda. You can look over that. Kind of highlight some of those areas already. And since we're training standard, but I know the time is an hour, and I've already gone a couple minutes in, let me start my little clock here, because we want to get into the videos, which will be the brunt of our time here, and then we want to have some discussion. All right, so here's a little bit about my coaching background. I already highlighted the officiating. Silver certified in 2019. On Fargo team for South Carolina with 1 Greco All-American in 2021, 2 Greco All-Americans in 2019, North Carolina. I was on the Pan Am team in 2013, Coach Dayton Fitz, Cade Brock, lot of stars. Manville was on that team. He won straight sweep of gold in freestyle. Sean Charles. There's a Cornell Robinson, a guy that's floating around Wyoming Seminary, doing a lot of things on YouTube, Money Talk. We were all the coaches. The Greco side, 7 gold, 2 silver, 1 bronze. That was supposed to have been the most productive cadet Pan Am team that was ever put together in that time frame. Senior Pan Am, I got a chance to assist with Steve Frazier as he transitioned now. 2 bronze medals, going to Havana, Cuba, training with them for 10 days. I was a world-class athlete member for a number of years, from 93 to 2000, 2003, 4, 06, and 08. My last time I was here training was 08. All-American 9 times on the Greco senior level. Universities, nationals, that's what U23 is now. So the second in that, and win 3 times in a row. So it used to be an Olympic festival. It was very, very big, huge event here. North, south, east, and west. All sports competed against each other. Wrestling was one of the key things in it. I met Shaquille O'Neal on that team. He was from the south, I was from the north. And a lot of stars that were junior Olympians, All-American basketball, you name it, were part of the Olympic Festival from the early 90s. And it disbanded, I believe. 94, 95 was the last of that. But I'm sure there's some coaches that are aware of that form. 2-time Armed Forces, Greco-Roman, I'm an All-American. So I'm a national champion. Fargo used to be in Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, Iowa, at Northern Iowa University in 91, or 90, when I was there. And it moved to Fargo in 93. But the irony is, the coach that just gave us that TED Talk, and if anybody knows what TED Talks, raise your hand. We just had a wrestling TED Talk. That is an invaluable experience and insight. So I would like for us to give Coach a round of applause. The irony, when I was a senior in 1990, Mr. Joe Williams was on my coaching staff in Minnesota with Dan Chandler, who I didn't know was an Olympian, and we were one of the best producing teams I think Minnesota had. We won freestyle and Greco in 90, if I recall correctly. And I had over 100-some kids in my weight class at 123, and I took 4. And some of those kids I ended up seeing later training for the Olympics. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's get into the deepness of what we're talking about. Wrestling analysis for wrestling, video analysis for wrestling development. Can somebody read that first top block? Anybody? There you go, Hunter.
The tape doesn't lie. Success and failures are captured, lively, honest feedback from your wrestling performance.
Okay, I highlighted that, right? One of the first things that I do when I talk to a kid and their parent, and I say, hey, this is what's going on in the video, and this is how we can correct it, all right? But the common theme is everybody sends me that victory. And I have 3 gentlemen today here who graciously volunteered their experience with their matches. We got Christian Bell from Minnesota, Jacob Campbell, raise your hand, he provided me a match. And Tommy Worcester, Tommy provided his match. All right, and if we have more time, I have one of my kids from 8th grade that's now at Morgan State who's having some troubles transitioning from high school to college, and I really like to show that. All right, we're training to the standard of the time is now. All right, next line, second line, anybody? Yeah, Christian.
Watch matches with respect to the support guys. Have your coach, parent, or wrestling coach watch your matches with you to assist in highlighting the point of that outcome to the wrestling viewer training. Discuss ways to improve the detail. Stance, level change, shot selection, scoring ability, riding on top, /taking bottom, how you felt with the match.
When I watch all these 3 guys' matches, and the only one I didn't give some comments back to was Tommy, I gave them a critique of each period, did I not? And I broke down what I saw. And primarily was folk style. Let's just put it in a folk style context, because that's the base of all our wrestling from the branch out freestyle. You lose matches based on your stance, your level change, closing the gap to get your takedown, your ability to score. I have my 2nd year this year going into folk style wrestling. And there's a lot of things that I think that hurt you with freestyle is that you don't really focus on that control or that 2-point takedown in the zone is critical. And if you don't have control, we have a lot of freestyle technique, blending in folk out with the ankle passes and the funk. And I saw Christian's match several times put in a situation where he was in on shots, but he couldn't finish it. And there was a lot of exerted work, a lot of effort, no takedown. And we'll talk about that when we get to this. But just highlighting the areas where coaches, this is just, and I don't have a deep folk style background, but I just love wrestling. I started looking at the basics, if they're doing those correctly. And riding on top, it seems like a lost art. Everybody cuts. They don't know how to turn, leg ride, spiral ride, power half. We don't hardly know how to pin, or escaping the bottom is a critical thing too. This year's NCAA's countless matches lost from not being able to get on the bottom. And a couple of guys that volunteered their matches today, inability to escape on the bottom. Or they're cut, and they can't take that and back and score. All right, and the last bullet we have there, anybody? Somebody on this side, don't let the left side dominate. There we go.
Determine key area to focus on in practice. Pick a key area that impacts your match outcome and develop a method to improve in this area during practice. Position, technique, drilling, live scenario.
All right, so we're a week out from Fargo. You're getting in a cut weight mode. There's really no banging. Maybe your last live this afternoon. You might have little circuit matches into next week, but really this is wind down. Your summer had a trajectory. Coaches have a lot of data. Kevin provided a beautiful layout of how he tracked his performance and where they want to peak. I talked to Rashad about how he got his girls to peak from women's nationals, and they had a little setback, but they jumped right back up for Vegas 3 weeks later. All right, so whether we're in a folk style scenario, we also can hey, freestyle Greco. What areas in freestyle? Stance, level change, the defend, counters. How are we getting to our ankle lace? Are we setting our gun wrench on ankle lace out of transition? Greco, your stance, able to score, working the zone, your defense on bottom, force parterre, you're giving up the point, you're going down. Can you maintain good defense for the 30 seconds? All right. Next slide. All right, from video to practice improvement. This is, still you have to be honest with yourself. Identify the problems in your matches that you see. And just pick one thing and go in the room and start getting with the right workout partners, any workout partner, or by yourself, or reviewing other people's matches, high level, that do the areas that you're weak in, that they do them well. All right, matter of fact, I was talking to Kai about thoughts about video review, and Shakai said something to me. Shakai said, well, I thought you weren't supposed to look at your matches. Right? Can you rephrase what you talked about earlier?
I don't look at my points and matches. I usually overthink.
Louder, stand up. We gotta hear you guys. Come on, man. Come on.
I don't look at my point videos because I usually overthink.
So you don't look at your matches whether you won or lost because you think it's too much in the detail, too much in the weeds?
Opponents, how they
Oh, okay. So I was telling him about, not only do I look at my own matches, when I was training, I knew everybody in the country who was in my way. Dennis Hall is someone I could not beat because of size, strength, how he trained. I didn't have the mental ability, the physical ability to meet and measure my opponent. And irony, I met him in '90 to work out with him and didn't know who he was. And 3 years later, I was rising on the senior national team, and he was the one person who would have been the difference between me being a Greco household name and me just being a known name in the Greco community. All right? But I started to study his matches. And then I started to study the competition in Europe. And I started to understand how they set up their underhooks. Power, force. I started listening to how he flew people in from Europe to train, to prepare for the Olympic Games. He wasn't concerned about his competition here. He kind of knew them. He already had it each matted out. And I started hearing comparisons to college wrestlers, how they strategized. They knew the weight class, they knew the schools, knew how the schools trained, and they started strategizing for styles. Because in freestyle and Greco, there's different styles. Sometimes they match. My body size with someone like me, we mirror each other. I had a hard time beating people like that because it's like wrestling myself. Short, stocky guys, hard time getting underneath, so I had to learn how to wrestle outside or just stay good position and force parterre and I get on top. Then I was pretty decent in lifts, and I would take advantage of my key assets in those areas. I would improve my weaknesses while I play to my strengths. All right. So you can take this and identify any focus area and start going down the list how you want to go about it. All right. Somebody start reading from the top. Anybody. Take yourself and use this as a template in how you will go about formulating and improving your wrestling from your video you see. And anybody just raise your hand, stand up and say, hey, I'm just giving you a couple things to look at. How would you start to take your wrestling and break it and transition from the video to practice to improve? Anybody? Take her. Go ahead. So, focus area, stance, level change, shot selection. Knowing what you know now in this camp, how would you go about working on those various areas?
Maybe ask the coach to like show you how to do something that you found that
Okay, the coach has all the insights. He's practiced you, he's trained you, he's in the corner giving you guidance. And that's maybe a relationship you need to improve at. Maybe something that you are doing in practice and not translating. So you have that competition anxiety thing, but maybe you don't have enough reps, enough drilling, enough live wrestling to close that gap. All right? The second part. Christian. Okay, add it to this? Okay, good. We got some discussion.
I think a lot of people kind of know where their downfalls are, where they're like lack at. I think like if you talk to like say like five coaches on that, like you'll probably like start to get like the same insight in certain areas, and then like you know you can kind of build off that from there. Like for me, like I kind of like I get out of position a lot, so it's like you know there's like things that you can do.
Okay. So Christian talked about a lot of times he's out of position. What is that? Why is that? Is it an opponent that's causing that, or you not staying disciplined within your capabilities, kind of weathering the open chair?
I get routed in matches.
Okay.
Like that kind of like,
And I've seen that. When he starts going, hey, it's light, and everybody on the floor is like, Christian Jelly, hey, this guy's dynamite. Be careful, no matter what the score is. By the end of the last period, there's still going to be fireworks. He's only, you weren't down by much in that match, right? But you had a guy who was on stage, stay firm, stay calm, and maybe that pressure, because he's not just giving up anything, put you at a disadvantage with you, so he has to do all these just haymaker type things that weren't sound, instead of just controlling the tide, getting your shot.
I was kind of just like just all over the place, just maintaining the position.
Okay. Does my strength level impact the ability to improve or digress in my focus area? I'm not necessarily a strength and development coach. We probably definitely have some coaches in here that have that expertise. From you guys' coaches' perspective that has that expertise with this scenario, have you seen maybe your kids are just not as strong? How can you have to implement something to maybe give them a base across the board, or is it the individual ones based on their skill level? They'll be put more of a higher level strength program, conditioning versus the other. Or on a whole, seem every school has a certain thing they do, a certain thing they're good. Oh, this school is good on the bottom, this school is good on top, or this good is banging their clubbers. Is the conditioning or part of your program impacting the outcome of the wrestler? So, any coaches take on this second area?
Sure. Last year I had, I want to say, 7 freshmen, 5 of which I knew would start. And that jump physically from 8th grade to 9th grade was tremendous. You're a 14, 15-year-old wrestling an 18, 19-year-old. I knew I couldn't match that per se, like puberty has to take place. So I kind of implemented a program from like when school let out all the way leading up to November. And then, obviously there's some tapering in there. And then kind of moving on through the season where they could at least maintain. And some got even stronger, but it was 100% a factor. And I knew it would be. I'm going to have the same problem this year. Another group of freshmen, 3 to 4, should be very competitive when they walk in the room, but they got to get stronger. And it's definitely going to impact their ability to compete.
So there's some couple things Coach mentioned. you only got from November to February to really build, peak, and have that state champ. So there's like some personal ownership. I mean, he's a coach, he's got a career, he's got family, there's an off season, there's a wrestling season, there's a school season. Some of that responsibility for your weight strength program has to start with you. And our coach mentioned that. You know, personal buy-in. The coach can only do so much. All right. And then in the Fargo sense, I've seen where there's a distinct difference between 16U cadets strength conditioning and when you start to go over to that junior side. All right. So some of you who are becoming 2-3 time visitors of Fargo, you did 2 in the cadet. Next week might be a little different. All right. Does conditioning, diet, mental impact my focus area? So I started that video with the wrestling, but this week we've been looking at a lot of other things impact wrestling besides, you know, the sweat and tears in the room. Besides the strength and conditioning, diet or mental focus. I saw 2 matches from Jacob and Tommy. It was intense matches, low scoring, but how much of that mental wear on you? Because when we get to their matches, you'll be able to see like, hey, there's a match to go. Is there less activity? Is there more? Even with Christians, are they still as active? Do they still believe? Or is there something mentally telling them like this? I don't have it today. I'm deferring to my competition. All right. All right. So burned a little time into this. The video should take us a little bit more. Any questions? Anywhere that we'd like to expand more before we go into the video? All right, this first match, this is Jacob Campbell. Jacob, can you give us a little background before we start this? What's the circumstance? What's the scenario? What state you from? What weight class?
I'm from Arkansas. This was the state finals at 132. I won state my freshman year, lost sophomore year.
Okay. And I'm just gonna go through the first 2 minutes, first period, and then we'll start some discussion with there. But I want this to be something for you to look, you to review, and based on how I shaped the previous slides, how would you reapproach this match? All right. My bad. Switch. Take the PowerPoint down. All right, here we go. OTC bloopers.
Jacob, are you in the white or the blue?
Jacob is in the white with black knee pad. White headgear, black knee pad.
Pressure! Stop, stop!
Okay, we're in the first few seconds of the match. Who would you say is dominating position? Has there been any attempts yet? 30 seconds has already gone off. Top right corner.
Stop! Stop first! Stop! Stop first! Do not let it up! Stop! Stop! Stop!
Is Jacob moving his feet?
Stop!
Is he working out of that front headlock?
Stop! Stop!
Is there a little arm drag out? Is he trying to drive his opponent out? Is he just standing firm and holding position?
Bring him in, man! Stop! Bring him in!
1 minute's passed in the match. right, he's got a Russian tie, he's trying to square up. Is there any re-attack? Is Jacob on his heels or on his toes? Now he's in the zone. Is he circling out of the zone, trying to re-attack? That level change, that penetration. Is he getting deep? Is that a full shot? Quarter shot? There's 30 seconds left in the match.
Keep it! Elevate it!
Alright, there's 7 seconds left in this period. No one scored. Has anyone made any attempts?
Not any legitimate attempt.
Alright, so Jacob, if you could walk us through how you felt before the whistle, shake hands, and then when the whistle starts.
I mean, I was pretty hyped up. I knew he was good. I knew it was going to be a really good match. And I was kind of nervous because I'm actually really good with that guy. And I throw it every week. But then you have to skate.
So that's the key thing right there. Familiar with your competition. You've seen each other before. Did you have video on? You already knew what you saw? Or did you have in the way we're shaping using video now? Had you looked at matches with him and understood where you were at a disadvantage or advantage?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had clarity of what you need to do to win that match. Anything further? Your ability to shoot or take shots. What was preventing you? I mean, anxiety, nerves, like what? You didn't seem to have any deep attempt, but he didn't either. So that could have been both of you kind of filling each other out because you knew. But if you had that opportunity again, what would you do differently?
I'd be a lot more aggressive.
What shot selection would you be looking for? Outside sweeps, high crotch. How would you work with your tie, your setup? Like these are the things that we're talking about taking and going back into practice. How would you break it down based on the slides? Like, how would you identify where to start and what to do? Because I would say, hey, you want to learn how to work with a collar tie. Move your opponent, create an angle. Right? We talked about that through Jaden. Jaden mentioned that first day, right? There was really no high level attack, so you didn't have to worry about too many down blocks or but the stance in motion then a re-attack, like in engage. Anything else? A little bit more? No? All right. Let's transition to Christian.
What color is this singlet?
Christian is blue with the blonde hair.
138 pounds.
Now, before we start, Christian, what tournament this? What echelon of match was this?
This was postseason nationals, finals, 138. He's from Arizona, from Minnesota.
All right, and this is the finals. And where was this at?
I think that one.
Okay, the Iowa one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Des Moines.
Now, before this match, what was your mindset? Have you seen them? What were your key things you're going to be trying to accomplish to win the match?
Yeah, I felt good because I was coming off like 4 attacks, and he was coming off like close win, and then like I just wanted to go out there and bang. Then I just wanted to get in his head, break him. That's why I cut him in, like after the first takedown. But I knew he was just really good positionally. So.
All right, so let's see the tape.
2025 Folk Style National Championships here. Got Arizona versus Minnesota. Arizona and Anderson. Minnesota is Jelly. I've got the opportunity to watch this young man Jelly this weekend, and I'm telling you.
I tell you what, even from that right there, that exchange, I look at that like, who's ready to wrestle? Coaches, who's ready to wrestle? Arizona or Minnesota?
The kid in the black hand right after you and put his hand right in your face.
Even with poking the eye. All right, up, little reset, little pulling up your socks, Jordan Burroughs. I'd be probably cussing out at you. Poking back in his eye, like, what are you doing? Like,
I was thinking about like just giving like a quick leg kick, but I figured you probably not.
And I know that's not sportsmanlike, right? But I'm like, hey, you gotta measure what he's bringing it. Like, he's in your face, right? And you're doing a timeout and all this. He could have shot on you, and those officials, you're still at 2 takedown, or 3 takedown now, right? Like that right there, in Fargo. Someone, my kid, I'm trying to run you off that. Hey, 1, right? So this is some mental side. Like, this is the finals. All right, let's keep going.
Has put on a show, and he's done a whole show with a smile on his face. So it's going to be very interesting how he performs here under pressure in the finals.
How deep are those shots?
Anderson again coming from Valiant Prep, one of the most acclaimed
Nice shove.
high school training programs in the country, who have put out just numerous athletes out to the world stage. This should be a good barn burning of a match. Right now you got Jelly in a negative position and Anderson looking to occupy the tape.
All right, so before this ankle pass exchange, that shot that he hit on you and your ability to counter that was a clean shot, but then your recovery. So Jaden talked this week about head, hands, down block, and then when you beat. So in that exchange, like, hey, what were you saying to yourself when you got in on that? Like,
Yeah, I was like, I think I'm a little too confident in my scrambling ability sometimes. So like that's what I've really been working on, just like more basic instead of like relying on that. Because like obviously that can be there when I need it, but like obviously like in that exchange I didn't really need it.
because right now, from that point on, the rest of this period and the rest of the match, a lot of his attacks were you playing defensively scrum. And I feel like there's too much work, too much energy exerted trying to do the new way to counter defense as opposed to the standards, sprawl, hip in, circle off from the attack. Because he shoots from space just like you. But he timed it.
Down, and there we go again, Jelly. He has been slick this whole weekend. I've seen that a couple of times, more than a couple of times this weekend with him. Looking like he was getting ready to get taken down, and lo and behold, when it comes out, he...
For me and folks, that one thing I hate. You did all that work, they gave you a takedown right here, right? You cut him. You're not riding on top, you're not trying to drain him. Do you have a series of things on top?
Yeah, but it was kind of dumb. I thought like after that first takedown he'd be his head a little bit, so if I get one more, then it's just like I like to like. But like, obviously in that scenario I should have rolled, yeah.
Okay, so we're in the finals. You taking him down, you assume he's going to be there again. So a little arrogance, a little cockiness. But hey, we got to have confidence in who we are as a wrestler. You as a wrestler is different from Jacob, all right?
He scrambles, he moves his feet, he shifts his hips, and he's on top. He's getting the takedown. Again, 3-1. 1 minute left in the first period. Jelly on top over Anderson. 3-1 in your junior boys.
Who's the aggressor?
158-pound national championship.
Arizona or Minnesota?
Folkestown Nationals here in Fort Iowa.
There it is again. Second attempt.
Here for Anderson. Probably was just a half of a step away from making that.
That right there is the story of my kid's life at Morgan State. Shooting from space, lunging, relying on athleticism and strength. And a high level capable guy wrestling you. He's counted a number of things. You're in, but look how far away your shot's are. So coaches, you got somebody who's wrestling like this, has been successful in the past. but we're going another tier in these national tournaments. How would you try to work within his framework of his wrestling without severing the relationship? Because you know he's got the talent, but it needs to be polished. All right? Anybody want to take that on? Coach.
Are you talking about a match or like?
Well, in this scenario, there's how we're going to transition from giving up these shots or taking long-winded shots with no sound control. They're not even high percentage.
Yeah,
How are you going to translate that back to the room to correct
Not
it?
room. In the room, I want to hit more drills, or just getting on, like, getting closer right away. Get wrist control. When you shoot from such distance, like create some angles of space as you do your drills, so that you're not ending up overextended every time. Right? Get that more repetition.
And now, Christian, you as a wrestler, you've seen this a couple times. What changes did you make, or have you made going into Fargo next week with this? Because this is free, this is different now, but some of the same outcomes could be, instead of freestyle, it could be a cheat tilt, it could be a front headlock, it could be a chest wrap. It could be a major issues of not hitting that shot correctly.
So, yeah, obviously my coaches, my college coaches from Oklahoma, they watch all this, and like, the big thing that they've been working on is like he said, just like closing the distance, like getting more in on wrist, getting, instead of like, just like taking shots to take shots sometimes, like getting them out of position to take more shots.
Okay. So how many we got first year wrestlers, stand up, raise your hand. All right, second year wrestler. Third year wrestler. Fourth year wrestler. All right. How many 8th grade, 9th grade? All right. All you got. You got video take your matches? You see benefits to this brief right here, how you would change, how you might, or maybe you might have something working that's better than how I do. All right, I just want to kind of get a sense of the audience, because I know some of you high level guys. So how many people get ready to go to Fargo next week? Don't video review their match. Stand up.
Actually, I kind of do, it just depends.
Okay.
Coach, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just curious of the question. Who in this room literally goes through their videos and watch and review? Like, I think that's, I'm just curious. Okay, so who doesn't?
All right, so
It
maybe
should be everyone else. And some of y'all kept your hands down and there was a zero-sum question. So.
Well, there's a lot more questions. I want to drive a lot more discussion. I mean, we're not here to just sharpshoot the wrestling. We want to draw this comparison and then, hey, look at yourself. Do I use my video to the most potential that I can? Whether to improve my own wrestling or to scout my opponent to improve my wrestling. So some of that demographic, hey, we got young guys that, they use it, but are you using it to the extent to improve your abilities, and then how you translate that back in the room? So more questions, or just give me some examples of how you're doing that. All right, younger guys. Any take? All right, senior lead the way. If I can get right, senior.
Yeah, I'm gonna be senior.
All right.
Yeah, just more focused on like down block attacks, like that's what my main focus is, and just like elbow passes and stuff.
Okay. Elbow passes, working angles. Coaches, again, what things that you would try to reinforce to make that second nature for these guys to be deeper on the shots, or in these high-level matches, like who was our sports psychologist talking about the emotion and the gravity of a high-level match, where sometimes everything you thought you were going to do, it just goes out the window because of nerves and whatnot. Anything you can see that in these two videos that might hamper or hold back the wrestlers from their normal wrestling capabilities?
I mean, just looking at it initially, sometimes it's Rashad also talked about it, that sometimes we doubt our preparation or doubt some of those things. So, just having that confidence and increase our reaction time. So,
I mean, just a little bit of reaction time there, could have been, could not been.
Take down.
Even physically working on that posture, you know, like typically a good level change and a good attack should improve your position, or you get nothing. Like if the guy's got good positioning and you explode into him, then he just blocks out and you're back ready to wrestle in good position. So I would probably do a.
If you're a man who makes at least 150 grand a year and you feel self,
Head and chest up, on the contact, good level change, head and chest up, making sure that, because he's got long arms, so, you know, guys with long arms tend to want to just get a hand on the leg and suck it in, where I would probably put a ton of those repetitions and those fundamentals you talked about earlier. Good level change, good explosion, making sure your chest and your body is hitting that guy before you, and then you rest.
Yeah, Coach, that's one of the things I was noticing too, the Christian is built, right? You got long arms, probably, how long you been wrestling? All right, so you probably got away with that when you were younger. You could reach and get kind of, you get overextended and correct that, but then you get to the high level competition, it's a lot harder. So, you know, using that body type to work for you, that may, I'm sure it sounded like because it's going to accelerate, grabbing his wrist and pretty big angles. But the better the competition, the less chance you got to self-correct and overextend. So like I always kind of look at the body type of the athlete as well.
So we did have some statistics that Jaden provided. Was it 46% of that first point? You know, the first takedown you win, but
Wait, so that means more often than not, you get first takedown and lose?
I thought it was the opposite. If you initiate the first action and score, your percentage of winning is about 46%. But then that continuation in the second score goes up to 90-something. Yeah. So, you know, between these first two matches, who stepped forward? My biggest thing, I look at some of the matches, when kids step back, I look at that as a fear, anxiety, nerve. But the guys that step forward and assert their will and started off by asserting that momentum in the match, that carries over to that scoring. And then we're talking freestyle transition, and so of course there's a lot of things with your length and your long shots.
It's 80 to 86% chance.
Okay, once the first takedown? Okay.
Yeah.
Caleb.
You feel like scouting affects like your teammates, the way they wrestle. Like you think that, like if I felt like when I was younger, like underclassmen, if I scouted somebody, I wouldn't wrestle my legs. I was thinking about what they was like.
Okay, so
That is really.
who in here scouts their opponent? When you're preparing for you got a big duel, you look at the video, or you actually go to their duels and watch their wrestling. Alright? How you go about it? What are you looking for?
I'm looking at the main setup.
Baron. I'm trying to make sure. You got Brody and Baron. Baron, what are you looking for?
I'm looking for the main setup and what their main shot is.
Okay, Baron looking at shot selection and setup. Alright? Elaborate some more.
And like what coaches are looking for on top, what escapes do they do on bars.
Alright, so give me some key things as far as you're on bottom. What are some key things you identified that, hey, he's a leg rider, he's a spiral rider? And how did you implement what you were going to do to counter it?
For sure, leg rider. I tend to sit out and pull the foot out.
Okay. So, okay, you see how he's looking at, you know, he's not looking at a big, strong, fast, power. It's more like, what is he doing to control me in this part here? Is he chop blocking, going for power half? Is he driving the hips, ankle riding? You know, he's looking for an arm bar. Is he putting boots in off a little, I'm losing my mind about training thoughts, but chop block and slide in the leg ride, kind of like a freestyler would.
I'm kind of like that too. Like I don't like to watch it, so I feel like a good way to like make up for that is like just have your coaches watch them and just like point out the main
Okay.
main things for you.
Too much anxiety for you to watch, causing too much overthinking. So you have your coaches do this.
Like whenever I like have a pretty high level match, it's just like my coach would just like point out to me like their main takedown.
Okay, so then when we talking about that, anxiety and whatnot, the nerve, looking at our own wrestling drives us one way, but then we're looking at our opponent, we might give him a little bit bigger than life perspective, and it's not that big, but if our coach's way, it's not as that heavy of a weight to bear, right? Okay. All right, we're about a quarter till. It's one of the last matches. We're going to Tommy Worcester.
Conscious about your gut sticking out, I'll get you shredded or you won't pay a dime. I'm talking Chris Hemsworth's Thor and Brad Pitt in Fight Club level rip.
Wait, why are you skipping?
Division 1, 113-pound final. We have Ryan Seacrest of Brecksville in the red taking on Tommy Worcester of Double 12 in the black. Division 1, 113-pound state.
All right, Tommy,
Is Tommy
introduce yourself.
So I'm Tommy Worcester. This is the Ohio State Final at 113. I wrestled the guy at Brecksville during the season, and I got beat up pretty bad. So this one I closed the gap a little bit.
Okay, familiar with competition. Seeing him again in the biggest matches of his life. Is this your first time in the state tournament? Tommy, this is your first time at states in the final?
Yeah, that's my freshman year. So.
Okay.
This match brought to you by Defense Soap. You know what you have built. Also, Barbarian Apparel, conquer the impossible.
Tommy's in black, his opponent's in red. Who's the aggressor? Tommy's been aggressive the whole time. Okay, so that's where I lost it. And it went off. I was like, I didn't think I'd take a D awarded it at the end. So once you was in D, are you familiar with, has he hit you in those D shots before? Had you had a game plan about how to counter? Was he predominating the right side attack?
So he's pretty fast from space. So the last time I wrestled him, I think he got on that shot, but so in this one I just wasn't moving my feet enough really. I was too focused on getting to my ties that I kind of forgot about my footwork a little bit.
Okay. So in the moment, competition, it's like sometimes you need to get taken down, and sometimes I got scored on, and I was like, okay, now I got to click back and go forward until somebody does something. It's just you're just breaking the ice. So okay.
Score of the match goes up 3-0 with just over a minute left in the first period. Seacrest puts him up. Match is now 3-1.
All right, who's the aggressor? Who's losing? Aggressor knows his urge. Is he on shots? Is he taking a shot yet? Stalking, but it's stalking to attack.
We are a private golf membership for private.
All right, so take it down. Cause neutral starts 3-1. What was your game plan after that?
So my game plan was to get to my post because that's where I'm best. And I was kind of struggling. He was clearing them, and I was having trouble getting the shots off.
Because he stayed constantly moving.
Yeah, he was constantly moving.
So do you think he had to take on you and knew that you favor underhooks to try to score?
Yeah, he probably did.
All right, so when you get to certain parts of the season and you have a go-to, you know, it's your main bread and butter, but you're facing partners or competition that you've seen before. Sometimes we gotta add a new game plan, a different dimension. We gotta change who we are from November to December, add a little variation or some new nuances to our wrestling for January and February. Because people are scouting, even at the high school level, like, oh, you guys are 8th, 9th grade and up, and you're already looking at video review, you understand what scouting is, all right? You got 10 minutes left of the brief. Coaches, anything that you can provide for Jacob based on what you first just saw?
You did a good job stalking and keeping your hands down, but I watched the Brecksville match when he beat you, and you definitely closed the gap, but when he got that first takedown, it was very similar. You stalked really well, but once you got close enough where you felt like you can get a hand on him, you bring your right hand up, and that's when he banged you on that single.
Yeah.
You know, like I get that you're looking for your time, but instead of you coming like this, coming to get him, I probably would have moved more circular forward, like to the left, like your trail leg, so that way your lead leg is always out of reach, even when you start to make contact. And your right hand, you like an underhook left, but your right hand is your lead leg, right? You're righty, right?
Yeah.
So every time you reached up with your right hand, even though you like going club, lefty punch, what happens is you're forward and you reach up with your right hand, so he bangs you on that single.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had been circling like left, and even if you have to do more than one hand exchange, keep your right hand at home base, make that first contact like Coach is talking about, make that first contact with your left hand, so you're not in danger. Not that right hand can't shoot to both sides, but a single to his right is much better than any attacks he has to the left. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
So that way, if he had took that same shot, he would have been out of position and you'd been in go behind territory. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Right hand reach with a right leg lead is bad.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you got pretty good defense, Tommy, so most guys aren't getting you your lead leg anyway. But Ryland's good and he's fast, you're right. And he's gonna get you your leg. So, and that's why he cut you. He had no desire to ride you and he didn't want to be close to you at all. And they did game plan.
So we're right here, this exchange, right, where we're having the importance that I highlighted on one of the lead slides. Having the person that can give you the real talk, you can collaborate with what you see, and you're open, and it's not a personal attack, right? It's just to improve your wrestling, and this is actually insight the coach probably has until he's able to get that one-on-one. You know, he can't tap into his coaching ability and bring out the best wrestler in you. Right? So this was perfect. Like, you know, you're not resistant, you're communicating, you're listening, you know, you have buy-in. So everybody that says that they do the video review, you got your coaches buy-in, you trust what they're saying, your parents are involved, and they give you different insights at home. And so one thing I would like to talk about before we go to the final slide in the brief. When is too much? I have some parents, you know, I think they're too involved in their kids' wrestling. And I hear from the parent about this discussion after matches. He didn't win, this happened, I want you to see the video. And I look at the video, I said, well, the same thing I told you a month ago, boom, 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 boom. There's a problem, you need to go in the practice room and fix it. No, coach, I don't think that. Well, he lost. What more can I tell you? Any you guys have any of that where there's some, what you see and what you or coach, you might not agree on what's causing the outcome of your loss? Is there anybody that wants to speak to that a little bit, or generally you're all on the same page with what happens on the match, win or lose? Taker? Is there any, do you have any downsides to having a video review where you might not agree with what a coach said or your parents said, about what's in the video. Right?
Sometimes I may think it's more technical line that I lost or hacking the way it was, but my dad or coach will like think, you know, on the side of really my mindset and that like I wasn't giving like full effort and everything.
This is exactly what I want.
I couldn't hear what he said.
Stanley, what's your name? Evan, where you from? This is perfect right here. He knows what it is. He's the wrestler. But he has a coach or a parent that said it's something totally different. And I've seen this exchange. Could you say again what you said?
So sometimes like when something doesn't go my way, I'll think it's like more on the technique side, but my dad or my coach most times says it's more on the mental or like my body language or my effort.
Now, imagine every week from November to February, as you're trying to be a state champ, and you have that type of disconnect with your core support. I had this with a college kid right now. The dad texts me every day, every week. The kid does not text me at all. So, any coaches want to speak to that before we close out? How do you fix that? How do you resolve that?
What Coach Sprague said. Most important thing in this situation is the parent. And if the parent is making you do something that you don't want to do, you will never be the optimal because it's not coming from inside you and your heart. You can't do it to please your parents. You got to do it because you love the sport. It's too tough to do it for somebody else. Parents are well-intentioned, they mean well, they love you, they want good things for you, but they don't always know how to communicate it. It's the same for us as coaches. If we're not following a 4-to-1 praise to critique ratio, if we're not giving you more time to participate, if we're not coming up with good teaching methodology, then we're not doing you the service. And it's like Coach Sprague said again in that talk, what a great talk. At the end of the day, you're the one who has to fix your problems. You have to reach your goals, even if it's your parent in the way. Anybody know Gertrude Ederle? First woman to swim the English Channel. I'm sorry, Jason, I don't want to.
No. This is what it's about.
Gertrude Ederle, the first woman to swim the English Channel. She tried it the first time and she failed. And so what did she do? She found a new person, and that new person was somebody who had accomplished the goal and had a positive mindset. And so her new coach and her dad were the ones in the support boat as she's swimming the English Channel, and her leg goes numb, she's losing ground, and they told her, stop. You're not going to make it. And she said, why would I quit? I will either finish this swim or I will die. She became the first woman to finish it, and she beat the fastest men's time by 4 hours. You have to want it for you, even when your support crew isn't giving you the support you need.
So with that, I say, hey, you go on the mat, and I try to teach my kids to be their own coach. A lot of this video, I try to teach critical thinking. I frame it in the wrestling context. There's a lot of other things that impact the wrestling match. I'm like, hey, I'm teaching you how to identify and critique your own wrestling. So when you go out there, I don't have to yell as much. I don't got to move my voice. I'll just tell you little things that's not working the rest of it. Just like that coach saw and studied and knew your match. All right? We're rounding out. This is one of the last slides. Anybody want to provide anything with this? It's open forum. You know, we got a couple minutes before noon. We met our time hat. Standards been met, hopefully. Christian.
I think a lot of high school kids don't like constructive criticism because they take it the wrong way. When it's like I used to even be like that a little bit, like when in reality, like that's like you need to take that in the most because you're not going to be able to get better if you're not willing to take that criticism and put it in play.
I've definitely been a fish out of water when I tell parents and kids, you know, that's not working. You should look at this. And they don't know how to take that because everybody promotes and pumps people up. I'm speaking negative. All right? So just before we leave out, benefits of this breed, how you can use it in the future. Coaches, how many of you already use video review across the board for dual meets and looking at, you know, systemic things that maybe another program is outworking you, beating you on, you lost the dual. how do you make those adjustments, or getting ready for Fargo? What things that you saw through the regionals, through the duels, some trends, and you're getting beat at it, and now you know we got to try to polish it up for next week.
So I use video two ways. My assistant coaches do it a little more than me. We got like a video sheet, you know, and it's kind of like what that young man said, like, if I know I'm like heading into a match where we got tough kids coming up, regardless of the weight, you know, we looking for those same things, like best consistent setup being used, like consistent to offense to the right, left. So those fundamental things. But I also take video and actually scout my own kid. Like Phoenix wrestles for me, Caleb wrestles for me, Josiah, Gary. I'll watch their video and I'll look for holes, and then I take that and I plug the holes. So like, I mean, not to like throw anybody out there under the bus, I just use my son because he could be mad at me and, you know, he still got to get in the car. But like, there was a moment where he kept having his elbows out. And, you know, if you're the superior wrestler, most of the time you can make a lot of mistakes and guys don't catch you to down the stretch, right? So instead of me keep harping on him, telling him to bring his elbows in, what I started doing is kind of saying like, hey, let's close this hole and kind of like keep your lead hand and lead leg together. So rather than me like, I mean, just closing the holes, right? He needed some setups to go along with his outside game. He liked to shoot from space, but his best attacks come from, in my opinion, like when he's close and then the guy breaks away and then they go to make contact, then those low shots are there. So like, I kind of like started trying to close those holes. Like with Phoenix, like, you know, for him, like big things, like I think his big thing is like, he needs more XP. You know, he needs to be like wrestling like a lot of these other young guys, and just finding his style of wrestling. But I use video in those ways. I use videos to, like I say, I will scout for tendencies, but I don't overanalyze any opponent. Because I do believe it's more about what you do, but I'll over scout my guys, like, because I get to spend a lot of time with them. So that way, if I'm using my video to close holes, then, you know, unless we see something we ain't seen before, we typically ain't getting caught up.
Okay. Guys, this is the last bullet for the wrestlers. Benefits of this, seems like a lot of people are already ahead of the game. You know, video review in the 80s, that wasn't really a thing. All right.
It's terrible.
I don't remember the big camera was too much. All right. Questions? If we had lunchtime, appreciate it. Thank you.